Aaron Rodgers has had conversations with star wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. about joining the Pittsburgh Steelers, the playmaker said. Beckham, who was released by the Miami Dolphins in December, is still looking for a spot that could work for him in the latter stages of his career. The wide receiver revealed he and Rodgers have a close friendship, and there has at least been some communication between the four-time MVP and himself about coming to Pittsburgh. "I love him, and we've had conversations," Beckham said on the Club Random podcast hosted by Bill Maher. "I won't say that it's not a possibility, and I won't say that I haven't had any communication." Beckham and Rodgers have a friendship with one another that goes back, and while preliminary conversations are just that, the Steelers do need a wide receiver. The All-Pro wide receiver has struggled to stay healthy over the latter portions of his career and played in 9 games last year for the Dolphins. A 10-year veteran, Beckham has played for the New York Giants, Cleveland Browns, Los Angeles Rams, and Dolphins while trying to find his late career home. The Steelers will likely be looking for an outside receiver who can block, which would fit better with someone like Gabe Davis than Beckham at this point in his career. The Steelers have also given young wide receiver Roman Wilson a chance to prove himself to the team as the answer to the wide receiver issue before they go out and make another move there. Cam Little did not emphatically break an NFL record with his 70-yard field goal last week, but it was good enough to get Little, his shoe and jersey anyway, into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Little's shocking kick echoed all the way to Canton, Ohio. The Hall of Fame requested Little to ship their way his game-worn items, and he was more than happy to oblige. The 70-yarder holds a unique spot in league history. The second-year Jacksonville Jaguars kicker hit a field goal that was 4 yards longer than any ever made in an NFL game, although Justin Tucker's 66-yarder against the Lions in 2021 still stands as the official league mark for longest kick. Little was a bright spot as a rookie in an otherwise dismal Jaguars season. The 2024 sixth-rounder was named to the 2024 NFL All-Rookie team after hitting 27 of 29 field goal attempts and all 27 extra-point tries. After Week 2 last season, Little's only miss was a 55-yarder. His longest make was from 59 yards against Detroit. But following Little's preseason heroics, the bar seemingly has been raised for the longest kick mark, a record that once stood for more than 4 decades before Tucker's kick. If Little becomes the first kicker to make a 70-yarder in a game that counts, his path back to Canton might be even smoother. The Miami Dolphins are experiencing a soft reset this year, but they have to ask themselves whether wide receiver Tyreek Hill has reached the point where he's no longer valuable enough to retain. However, he might be for another NFL team. So his status is uncertain, with an oblique injury right now. As for when he gets back in the lineup, is still up in the air. ESPN's Jeremy Fowler said on SportsCenter, hat tip CBS Sports' Cody Nagel. "Right now, I have talked to a few teams that are at least monitoring his future a little bit. Could he be a potential trade target? I know the Dolphins earlier this summer were telling teams, no, we're not trading Tyreek Hill. But they just wonder, is he going to be available? It could be wishful thinking. Maybe they want him to be available, but he's a player that when I bring up the teams and say, who's sort of a trade target you're watching? They bring up Tyreek Hill, so we'll see. He's a big option for Tua Tagovailoa, and that'd be a major move if they did move away from him." Hill already turned 31 in March, and his production dropped off dramatically last season. He has a $15.9 million bonus coming due at the end of August. His speed remains a weapon, though not possibly at the price in which the Dolphins continue to pay a 9-year veteran who may not be fully committed to the team. However, some type of deal can be struck with another organization that still sees premium value in Hill for the short term and has the immediate financial capabilities of taking on his contract. For jumped out here. Trade package. Dolphins trade Tyreek Hill to the 49ers in exchange for W.R. Jawan Jennings and a 2026 sixth-round draft pick. The San Francisco 49ers have both the financial and roster flexibility to make a deal for Hill happen. They have also been close to winning a Super Bowl during Kyle Shanahan's tenure. After securing quarterback Brock Purdy's long-term future, the organization should pursue any avenue toward finally pushing the Niners over the top before the contract starts to massively escalate in the coming years. With Brandon Ayuk still recovering from last year's knee injury and Jawan Jennings demanding a new contract, San Francisco can change its wide receiver room in one fell swoop by trading for Hill, who automatically becomes the squad's #1 target at the onset of the 2025 season. Jennings brings a unique skill set in Shanahan's system, which Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel knows quite well, yet he lacks the explosiveness and field-tilting capabilities Hill presents to change the 49ers' offensive complexion. Conversely, the Dolphins can rid themselves of Hill, bring back San Francisco's top receiver from last season, get a little younger, and almost certainly save money even with a contract extension for Jennings being a part of the bargain. Jennings is dealing with a calf injury, though he's expected back on the field for the start of the regular season. No, not at all, Shanahan said when asked whether the wide receiver was missing training camp due to a contract hold-in. And this is actually why Jawan missed OTAs, is because of his calf. It's the same injury he had last year during training camp, which made him miss a couple weeks during training camp last year. We didn't get him until the end of training camp last year, and it's the same thing on the MRI, and it's the same thing he's going through. But hopefully we'll get him back sooner than later. The Dolphins have already showed a willingness to make player-for-player swaps, with what essentially turned out to be Minkah Fitzpatrick for Jalen Ramsey. General Manager Chris Grier can do so again. Trade package: Dolphins send Tyreek Hill to the Pittsburgh Steelers in exchange for Nick Herbig, 2026 4th and 7th round draft picks. The Miami Dolphins and Pittsburgh Steelers already completed a pair of deals this offseason, which turned out to be one major trade, with Jalen Ramsey, Jonas Smith, and Minkah Fitzpatrick flip-flopping teams. Why not revisit the well? With 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers behind center, the Steelers are all in for the 2025 campaign. It's Super Bowl or bust in the Steel City. However, they haven't done enough to place them among the AFC's elite. Earlier this summer, the acquisition of wide receiver DK Metcalf from the Seattle Seahawks created excitement, even with the team's previous uncertainty at quarterback. Pittsburgh subsequently traded George Pickens to the Dallas Cowboys, again creating a need for a legitimate #2 target. By pairing Hill's blazing speed with Metcalf's physicality and Rodgers pulling the strings, the Steelers may have finally moved the needle and elevated their status as a legitimate contender. For the Dolphins, the return won't be as good as adding a 28-year-old, 5-time Pro Bowl safety. Miami can certainly demand more in a trade if the franchise is willing to eat a portion of Hill's upcoming bonus and/or base salary. Though the organization has already stated publicly it doesn't want to trade him, which hardens its negotiating stance. However, a benefit exists in simply moving Hill's contract, saving a windfall of salary cap space and rolling it over to next season. In turn, the team can bring back a 23-year-old defender in Nick Herbig. The Wisconsin product has 2 years remaining on his rookie contract and provides flexibility as an off-ball linebacker and edge rusher. The Steelers are deep among their edge defenders, which makes the talented young player available. Herbig, Chop Robinson, Jaylon Phillips, and this year's first-round pick, Kenneth Grant, can form a solid foundation of what becomes a formidable defensive front. Trade package: Dolphins trade Tyreek Hill to the Las Vegas Raiders in exchange for tight end Michael Mayer, a 2026 5th-round draft pick, and a 2027 7th-round selection. The idea of the Raiders making a splash move by acquiring the fastest wide receiver in the NFL harkens back to the days of Al Davis. Some may even say the approach is ingrained in the organization's DNA. In this instance, Hill to Sin City makes a lot of sense. Geno Smith is a veteran quarterback in need of a legitimate weapon at wide receiver. The Raiders don't have a reliable option beyond Jacoby Myers, who isn't an explosive option, either. Hill can immediately enter the lineup as the clear WR1 without ever taking a practice snap with the squad. Head coach Pete Carroll enters this season as the oldest coach in NFL history at 73. The Raiders aren't a team built to be patient, especially if minority owner Tom Brady is as involved in decision-making as it seems. Hill can be a difference-maker for the team because he doesn't need to be its #1 threat with tight end Brock Bowers already on the roster. The two can be fantastic complementary pieces, as opposing defenses would be stretched by bracketing both in coverage. Because of Bowers' presence, fellow T. Michael Mayer is expendable. Granted, the Raiders can easily move forward with both on the roster. Hill presents a different dynamic, though. Besides, Hill in the Raiders lineup gives the team a much better chance to compete in the stacked AFC West. In return, the Dolphins should be intrigued by adding the 24-year-old Mayer, especially after trading Jonnu Smith to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Granted, the Dolphins brought Darren Waller out of retirement, but he's not a long-term solution. Mayer has 2 years remaining on his rookie deal and can be the type of target to control the middle of the field in Mike McDaniel's offense. Trade package: Dolphins trade Tyreek Hill to the Seahawks in exchange for DB Kobe Bryant and a 2026 fifth-round draft pick. The Seattle Seahawks must push past mediocrity, which is exactly where the franchise has found itself over the last 4 seasons. A big move to give new quarterback Sam Darnold a unique weapon on the outside can create a significant difference. During the aforementioned span, the Seahawks own a 35-33 record with only 1 postseason appearance. As a result, changes came, particularly on offense. Quarterback Geno Smith, wide receivers DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and tight end Noah Fant are all gone. Darnold, Cooper Kupp, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, and rookie Elijah Arroyo now stand in their respective places. However, the Seahawks can improve their big playability with Hill in the fold. Offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak also came from the Shanahan tree, just a different branch than McDaniel's. Still, he can see how the Dolphins have deployed Hill and incorporate those wrinkles into Seattle's offense. Jackson Smith-Njigba and Kupp are both outstanding, high-volume targets. Hill is a superior outside receiver who provides a much-needed extra threat considering Kupp has missed at least 5 games in each of the last 3 seasons. If the Seahawks want the version of Darnold that showed up last season for the Minnesota Vikings, he needs premium weapons in the lineup.